If you want to be more efficient and effective while experiencing more inner peace, then working on the core of your issues instead of putting on a Band-Aid is vital. Welcome to LifePix University podcast. I'm your host, Esty Rapport, and here to help you improve your 28 cognitive functions, the 28 things that make up thinking. In each episode, we'll discuss a real-life challenge, why you might be struggling with it, and give you practical strategies so all areas of your life will improve.
Are you someone who sees the big picture or usually only sees the details? What if I told you you can train your brain to see both the big picture and the details so you can use whichever one you need in the current situation you are in? And many times it's both. That's what's coming up next on LifePix University podcast, episode 382. But first, which one is your strongest cognitive function? Which one is your strongest thinking skill? Which cognitive function is really weak? Which one do you need to work on more? Find out by taking the cognitive function assessment at lifepixuniversity.com/CF for cognitive functions. That's LifePix, LifePix, university.com/CF. For today's real life challenge, imagine you hired a marketing agency to launch a new product. You know they're really good, yet for some reason you keep on having small disagreements or just like clashes with them. You feel like they're missing out on some details and they're trying to tell you it's going to come all together in the end. You might be struggling with this if you have the cognitive deficiency, the weak thinking skill of categorizations. That means your brain struggles to categorize correctly. This is actually a cognitive function that I struggled with for the longest time, even though I always thought I was so good at it. But I always heard, look at the bigger picture. Esty, take a step back and see the forest. Esty, you're being so focused on the little details. Why can't you see the whole thing? But I was so caught up in making sure that the details were accurate that my brain couldn't see the big picture. Now, we need to be able to see both. There are times when we need to see the whole picture, see where we're going and what our ultimate goal is. And then there are also times when we need to see the details. What action steps do I need? What will help me in this situation? In some ways, the fact that I was able to see the details really well without getting overwhelmed by the big picture helped me do things that other people weren't able to do. For example, a lot of people get overwhelmed by a big mess they have to clean up. But I never had a problem. Maybe my brain didn't enjoy doing it, but I didn't get overwhelmed by it because it was so focused on the pieces. Yeah, I could just pick up the Lego. Yeah, I could just do that little part of the room. Yeah, that's not a big deal. And before I know it, the whole room is clean. I'm telling you this to remind you that you can leverage your stronger cognitive functions to improve your weaker ones. By improving your cognitive functions, you're going to enhance the skills that you already have. How cool is that? So today we're going to discuss ways to improve your brain's ability to see the big picture. And next week, for those of you that are really good at this but struggle with finding the details, we're going to talk about that, finding the details. So like we said, to get better at seeing the big picture, you have to improve your cognitive function of categorization, to see the category, to see the group name, right? So here are 3 ways you can begin improving this cognitive function. The first one is starting really basic. I want you to name groups and the items that are underneath. For example, the group name could be color. This is saying the big picture. Then the details would be red, yellow, green, blue. Another example, group name, farm animals. Detail, cow, sheep, pig, horse, etc. Now you could make it a lot more complex and ask yourself more complex examples like prime numbers, all prime numbers. That's your category name. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, like that, right? You are getting to details. That's number 1. Number 2 is reorganize the closet. But instead of just taking everything out and putting it back in, because that's how most people organize a closet, take everything out and reorganize the categories. Make sure you have boxes or containers, shelves, however you want to categorize it. You want to make sure you have spaces for everything that you need based on the group. Now, it doesn't actually have to be a bucket, even though many times it does help. Sometimes like you have a specific bucket for pens or you have a specific bucket for socks or whatever it is. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just a specific place. Now, again, you are going back and you're seeing, this is my whole closet. Where am I going to leverage the fact that you know details? Where am I going to stick all these details in this big picture? But make sure you do it in a way that it is practical and that the right things are together in the right places. So let's say if you have a whole bunch of hair accessories, they're all going to be together. Sometimes, like without even realizing, we keep like the brush over here and the clips over here. But if we always use them together, why don't we categorize them and put them correctly? Tip number 3. Take a group of items, and this time, instead of just saying what the category is, you're going to organize them and categorize them in different ways. Examples, snacks. You could take a whole bunch of snack bags and categorize them into first color, based on the color of the bag. Then you could mix them all up and categorize them based on the color of the actual food. You could group it according to texture, to company, to taste, to what type of people eat it, to when do you eat it, all those sort of things. Now, as you're doing these, you're going to start getting conscious. Whenever you find yourself getting focused on the details, ask yourself, you have to be the one to tell your brain to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Use the words zoom in and zoom out. Super important, because when we give labels to actions that we're doing, to the strategies that we're doing, it's easier for our brain to remember and to do it again in the future. So say, hey, right now I'm zooming in and I'm finding the details. Right now I'm zooming out and I'm finding the big picture. Focusing on the big picture is especially helpful when you have a task you don't want to do, but it's part of a greater goal. So let's say you are trying to clean your house and you love clean houses and you want to clean house, but right now you are mopping the floor and you don't like mopping the floor. Instead of mopping the whole time about the fact that you have to mop the floor, then you could zoom out and say, hey, what am I doing now? I'm not mopping the floor, even though that's what you're actually doing. I am cleaning the house. And then it makes it a whole lot easier. I like a clean house. Remind yourself of what the bigger reason to why you are doing what you are doing. In today's episode, we discussed that being able to see the big picture comes from the cognitive function, the thinking skill of categorizations. Get better at it by, number 1, naming group names and then put items inside, rearranging a closet according to correct organization, or I don't know if there is a correct, but a more practical organization. And number 3, regrouping items in multiple ways, the same items in different ways. Number 4, technically, but it wasn't part of those 3. But in general, use these terms, use the words zoom in and zoom out. Your challenge this week is to pick one of the tips we spoke about and use it. Next week, we're going to be speaking about those details. Have an awesome day.
That's all for this episode of the LifePix University podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can gain from it, and you'll be helping us reach our goal of 1 million downloads by the end of 2025. Have an awesome rest of your day and grow those dendrites.